want to say something?
Hello.
Yeah, that looks pretty good. Welcome to a KGFN special interview with Kevin Grace, who is in our studio today. And Kevin, welcome to KGFN.
Thank you.
All right. Now, Kevin, you are kind of the director of the Friends of Joe Gans, and anyone who has any knowledge of Goldfield and this area and its history knows about the world-famous Gans-Nelson fight that was held here, and you're going to tell me the exact date.
September 3rd, 1906.
Do you know what the weather was like that day?
Very hot.
It was a hot day. It can be very hot here in September. Okay, and the fight is still in history books as the longest prize fight ever. Am I correct?
Yes, and at that time it was the biggest purse ever. Tex Rickard, who lived down the street, he promoted the fight. $30,000 was the purse, but even Joe was defending his lightweight title. He fought at 132 pounds. He got the short end of it, unfortunately.
Well, that was typically the case in that era when you had African American fighters, correct?
Exactly. Terms were dictated to him.
Yes.
Oscar Valentine Nelson and his manager, they took the $20,000 and they gave Joe the $10,000, and they dictated terms to him that he had to have 3 weigh-ins that day before the 3 o'clock fight to make weight with his shoes and his gloves on. If he didn't make weight, he forfeited the title, and it's one of those sad situations.
In reading the history of the fighter a little bit that I have been able to read, I understand that Joe Gans he's originally from Baltimore, correct? In your home area?
Yep.
Okay, and how did he wind up coming to Goldfield? Who was it, the promoter that got him to come here, and also battling Nelson to come here to do the match?
From what I understand, he was in the San Francisco area, and it was right around the time of the big San Francisco earthquake, and he was fighting out there at the time. It was hard being black. It was hard to get fights.
Yes.
Matter of fact, there's some discrepancies in some of the records. Some people thought he gave up his lightweight championship. In 1905, I know he fought several middleweight fights because he couldn't get fights at 132 pounds. So on his old gravestone in Baltimore, there's a kind of an era. He was the champion from 1902 to 1908, but some people think it was 1902 to 1904 and then 1906 to 1908. That's not the case. He was continuously a boxing champion. He was contacted. Tex Rickard wanted the best boxers at that time, and he wanted to promote a fight, and some people thought that amount of money that was being offered, there had to be some type of joke. And Joe needed some money. He was broke. I don't know exactly what happened. And Valentine Nelson, of course, he took the fight as well. So, and the terms, Joe was one of the better fighters of that day. So, of course, Nelson's manager was very apprehensive, and that's when he started throwing all these stipulations.
Yes, about what had to occur in order to not lose the fight just on technicalities.
And taking the lion's share of the purse as well.
Okay. Now, the record books, are murky during that period of time. I've read that, and that some people think he was the world champion of that weight division from 1902 to 1908, and some think that he had lost a bout at some point, but nobody can prove it.
Well, actually, I've got newspapers that say that he was the champion. So that's not in, and it's been proven to the International Boxing Hall of Fame in Canastota, New York. So all that stuff should be taken care of. I've got, matter of fact, luckily on eBay there were some people that have some of the old turn-of-the-century newspapers out of Denver and things like that, and it mentions that he's a champion and everything else. So that's not a discrepancy anymore.
And it was kind of, I've read also in the article that you had given me that Jack Johnson came along after him, and he was such a flagrantly egocentric type boxer that it kind of, and Joe Gans was actually very mild-mannered and very, very, what would you call it, the term?
I guess just, he was a gentleman in the ring and out of the ring. Matter of fact, in the Goldfield fight, one of the famous pictures of Joe was knocking out Nelson through the ropes, and he's helping him back in. And meanwhile, I think Nelson is kicking him. So he's kind of like that. Jack Johnson and Joe were actually good friends. The hotel that he opened, Joe, with his winnings, opened in 1907.
A hotel by the name of the Goldfield Hotel.
Yes,
correct.
Yes. October the 29th, 1907.
Yeah.
And you could hear ragtime music. It was called a black and tan club, so blacks and whites could come there to hear ragtime music. He gave the great U.B. Blake his first start as a piano player. I think he was age 19, and he wrote about 3 rags there, the Goldfield rag and 2 other rags that escaped my memory.
Yes.
And but Jack Johnson would come there to visit, and matter of fact, he modeled the 2 clubs that he opened, one in New York, the Cotton Club, and one in Chicago, Club Deluxe, off of the Gold Club, Goldfield. And folks would come all around to see Joe, and the place was open 24 hours a day, and you could drink, and it was a really good place.
And how long did he actually build the Goldfield Hotel in Baltimore, or was it a existing hotel?
It was an existing structure, like maybe, but it got connected, and he put money, he did invest money into it.
Well, back in that day, $11,000 or $10,000 or whatever, it was a lot of money.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, he had a car. He's one of the first black men in Baltimore to have a car that cost $5,555.
Whoa.
And you were mentioning about his title reign. The picture I have, I'll make sure you get a copy of it. On the spare tire on the car, it says Joe Gans, World Champion, 1902 to 1908. Yeah. So, I mean, there are things around if people want to see that he was champion, that, you can't erase some things in history. Unfortunately, it seems like his memory's been erased, he's forgotten, again, because you're a nice guy, you're quiet. Jack Johnson dealt with racism a lot differently. I mean, they did the movie, if you saw the movie with James Earl Jones, The Great White Hope, you see how he dealt with things and in your face, and people gravitated to heavyweights a little bit more than lighter weight champions.
Yes, they sure did. And how did you, Kevin, first become interested in the legacy of Joe Gans?
How much time do we have?
We have enough time. Give me a brief, little synopsis of where you discovered the legacy of Joe Gans and how that became so deeply entrenched into your persona and who you are.
Well, I'm in the Screen Actors Guild. I was working on a movie called The Walker. It starred Woody Harrelson, and a friend of mine is a boxing aficionado, Paul Bazzotti, and he was telling me about Joe Gans and telling me about the cemetery where he's buried. And he said, I've got a movie strip about this guy that was fighting had tuberculosis, basing on one lung. He's fighting a marathon type fight.
Did he have tuberculosis, which we haven't talked about yet, because he died shortly after.
In 1910.
Yeah, and did he have it when he was here in Goldfield, and does anybody know where he could have come in contact with it?
In Baltimore, his first wife, she died from tuberculosis. At that time, it was called consumption. If you look at some of the old graves around
I've
here,
read that, yes.
You see some people, it says consumption.
Right.
Being here in Baltimore, it was a big seaport. Matter of fact, if you read Colleen Aycock's book, which is another reason why I got more involved in Joe Gans, is talking about his biography of Joe Gans, first Afro-American champion, that details what was going on historically in Baltimore and the things that he had to deal with being a fighter. That got me even more into Joe. But meanwhile, I was talking to my friend Paul. He was telling me about the cemetery where Joe is buried, and I knew about it, and I just started researching more and more, and there were some spiritual things that even connected me more. when I got my Screen Actors Guild card, there was a TV show on HBO called The Wire that was filmed in Baltimore, and I got my card. I had a little small part on that
Right.
show.
Yeah, I read the words, but we can't say on the
No,
radio.
no.
You had one line, right?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I guess you could give the initials of what I said.
Yeah.
But anyway, geez, now I just had a memory loss.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
When I researched where he passed away at his foster mom's house. And actually,
Okay.
Joe's real last name isn't Gans, it was Gant. The media wrote it wrong. They thought
Okay.
it was Gant, and it got misspelled. And meanwhile, he was fighting and just kept it.
Okay.
His foster mom was Maria Gant.
I know
And-
he was a foster child.
Yeah, and the house where he passed away, and of course it got probably knocked down in the 50s or what have you.
Yeah.
But the street that we filmed my scene on is called Argyle Avenue, and I didn't know anything about that. Was in 2002 when I got my Screen Actors Guild card and did my scene.
Okay.
2009 is when I found out more about Joe Gans, and I went and I found out where it was, and I was like, man, this is where I did my scene, but I was farther up.
Yeah.
So that was one of the spiritual connections, and there were some other spiritual connections as well that brought me closer to Joe. And I just thought that somebody that had to fight during the time of Jim Crow segregation, and he wasn't just an athlete, he was also a businessman. As I mentioned, he opened the hotel and did those things. There's so many people out here that have done so many good things, and every year you always hear the same names of Martin Luther King, of Malcolm X, of Jackie Robinson, but somebody like Joe, it should be a household name, especially when you have a 42-round fight and the circumstances that you had to fight through at that time.
Well, that fight and Joe Gans and battling Nelson, that's an integral part and one of the important parts of Goldfield history. And all of us who live in this community, really love our history, and if we, most everybody does. At any rate, I do, and I think that they've done quite a bit here. We have that monument that was built in front of the courthouse commemorating the fight, and it's in every book that has been written about Goldfield. There is a segment in there about the battling Nelson and Joe Gans fight. It's not the only thing that was important in our history of this town, but it was one of the big things. And what's interesting is the promoter, who was Tex Rickard, left here and went to New York to build
Madison Square Garden. Yeah.
Exactly. And so,
he's like the architect of Madison Square Garden. The first Madison Square Garden was, the circus at that time was huge.
Was it?
And that was basically built more for Ringling Brothers Circus. The second one, which he was the architect of, I think it was like maybe 48th Street or something like that. Ironically, he died like, I think maybe a week before it opened. And there is a statue of Joe Gans there.
There is.
And because the newer one that opened in 1968,
right.
Madison Square Garden, the statue is located outside of the private dining room. At the old place, when they had boxing fights, people would rub the gloves of Joe Gans for good luck.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't know the statue. Like, well, I thought one guy, he was like, I thought that was a small version of Jack Johnson. I was like, no, that's Joe Gans.
Joe
so
Gans.
It's frustrating, even when there's something for Joe. There's not too many monuments or things that bring his memory alive. People don't know who he is, so that's why I'm fighting tooth and nail to try to do everything I can. I'm trying to get a postal stamp. I'm trying to get a statue in Baltimore, and I did send letters to folks that have money, like a Floyd Mayweather. Actually, Floyd has a striking resemblance to Joe.
Yes.
And also, I'm trying to get a feature movie done. And
would that be unbelievable, or what? A reenactment of the fight in Goldfield, 42 rounds.
Yeah, the particular spot where the fight occurred, you really can't have it on that area. There's a lot of things there, but
that doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
You can Hollywood, if they were going to produce this as a movie, they would probably do it on a backlot set.
Well, the thing you still got to have this Columbia Mountain in the back, so there's still some area right down by the foot of the the mountain there that you could do some stuff and put
Absolutely.
up a arena and all that stuff. So that's not out of the question.
And you, you've been in Goldfield. I've met you several times, and you've been here a number of times, and you've met pretty much the people that are in the movers and the shakers, if you will. And I'm sure that if that ever occurred, I know from my perspective, I know people that own property there that I'm sure we could get things worked out. It's not very far from that exact location. So that's not going to be an issue in the long and the short of it. But that would be, I can't believe that they haven't made a documentary movie about that.
Yeah, I've said stuff to, everybody you want to think of, I've done. HBO, to their feature department, to their documentary department. Also another gentleman that I know who wrote a book specifically about the Goldfield fight, Bill Gilday. He, when he was promoting his book, he was on ESPN, on Jeremy Sharp's show, talking about it, and public radio. So the name is out there. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to educate people to facts that they don't know, because it's so much information. Like, how come I didn't know that? And then they go into like a shell because they weren't taught about it.
Yeah.
Or some people again confuse Jack Johnson. They start thinking, But again, the information's out there. If people want to do something, like I said, I do a lot of stuff on social media as well. I've got something Facebook. Right. I can be reached at Kevin Grace #2 at Hotmail, and also like my page of Friends of Joe Gans on Facebook as well.
Okay, so if people want to stay in touch with that, with what's going on concerning Joe Gans and Friends of Joe Gans, they can go on, again, it's Facebook, and
it's Kevin Grace #2 at hotmail.com. You can reach me that way. Okay. And also Friends of Joe Gans.
Friends of Joe Gans on Facebook.
Right, and hopefully I'll pass on the address for the advisory committee that does the postal stamp, that you can hopefully drum up getting one for the Goldfield fight.
Yes.
As well. That should be something that should have been that people should know about as well. Historical fights, so not just Joe himself, but also the fight should be promoted.
I just don't understand. There could be a marvelous movie written and filmed about the history of Goldfield, especially the first 10 years, from the discovering of gold here, and by Marsh and what was the other guy's name? At any rate, they came with the Indian and found gold here, and got the Indian drunk, and he showed him where the gold ledge was, and they started staking claims. Another take advantage. Let's take advantage of somebody with alcohol, right?
They did with Manhattan was sold for just a couple of beads and trinkets.
Right? Oh yeah, trinkets and beads. Of course, there wasn't much there at the time. It wasn't exactly farm country.
Yeah.
It was all solid rock. All right, well, I really appreciate your coming down. And what is the plan now for your future? Are you coming out with any kind of a book? We're pushing for the stamp?
Yeah, like I said, the situation with the books has been covered between Colleen Aycock's book, the biography of Joe Gans. You can get that on Amazon.com, just as well as Joe Gans, The Longest Fight by Bill Gilday. You can get that on Amazon.com as well. So that's covered. I'm trying to do maybe a 15-minute short that I can put into film festivals that'll promote his memory, and hopefully it'll garner maybe some awards, and then Hollywood will be interested. And believe it or not, that same paper that I gave you, yes. I work at my other job when I'm not doing the Joe Gans stuff. I work for Southwest Airlines. The airport in Baltimore, right after the inauguration, I saw director Oliver Stone, and I looked him right in the hand and shook his hand, and I gave him that same paper and my card, and I've never heard anything back. So
of course,
yeah, but I don't know. Maybe some people are ready. I don't care if anyone steals the idea. Just do it. Joe is overdue for getting some notoriety, and his name should be a household name. Anything that you do of a marathon type situation, I can imagine people start saying, who do you think you are, Joe Gans?
Yes. Who do you think you are, Joe Gans?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I thank you very much for coming over to the studio and doing this interview with us. And we wish you all the best. And whatever we can do here at KGFN to promote your efforts, we surely will. And hope you come back again and keep us posted on what's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully when things start happening on my side, then Joe will be a hot topic, and then anything associated with that, it'll spread like wildfire as well, and that again would help here as well.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Anything to promote Goldfield, we're all in favor of that. Well, thank you, Kevin, and we'll go back to our regular programming.